we are prepared. We're prepared militarily. We're prepared with our allies to respond if that is necessary. That is not our preferred pathway, and that's been made clear.
Warning America of a, quote, merciless strike just one day before we in South Korea are set to begin our annual military exercises there. Pyongyang calling the drills, quote, reckless behavior, driving the situation into the uncontrollable phase of a nuclear war, they claim. Well, will the exercises further heighten and inflame the tensions, or bluntly remind Kim Jong-un of what his military forces could face?
From South Korea now, the leader of that country saying President Trump has promised to give him a heads up before beginning any type of military response to recent threats from the north.
In South Korea, President Moon Jae-in says the U.S. promises to consult with his government before attacking North Korea.
Only South Korea can decide military actions on the Korean Peninsula. Nobody can choose to carry out military action without South Korea's consent. The United States and President Trump have made a promise to fully cooperate and ask for our agreement in advance before utilizing whatever options they might use against the North.
North Korea says it is holding off on a decision to launch missiles towards Guam, home of Anderson Air Force Base, strategically placed and where the United States launches B-1 bombers in a show of force, or more, if necessary. Less than a week after escalating threats from President Trump and North Korea consumed the region. And they met only hours after White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon said, according to the American Prospect, that there is no military solution in North Korea, adding, quote, they got us.
I don't really have a comment on what Mr. Bannon's remarks were in that particular interview.
The president's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, is out of a job, as Fox reports this hour.
He said there's no military solution, forget it. Now, that directly conflicted with what both Tillerson and Jim Mattis said about North Korea, where they said the military option is on the table.
I think we have been quite clear as to what the policy and the posture towards North Korea is.
In close collaboration with our allies, there are strong military consequences if DPRK initiates hostilities.
What do you think about that?
I think so, and I think that you can add President Trump to that list for saying fire and fury would rain down on North Korea if they continue to threaten the United States. So Steve Bannon goes out and clearly shows the hand of the administration, suggests that North Korea has all the leverage here because Seoul, South Korea would be essentially evaporated if North Korea decided to start firing. That was enough to demonstrate, I think, a very clear difference between Steve Bannon and the White House in terms of just betraying a policy position, one that needs to be close-hold, especially in a national security situation.
Traveling in China, Marine Corps General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said the president told the military to develop a credible, viable military option, and, quote, that's exactly what we're doing. He added a military solution would be horrific, though allowing North Korea to develop nuclear technology to hit the United States is unimaginable.
If you don't like North Korea's behavior today, imagine what it would be like when it has 60 or 100 ICBMs, each of which has a nuclear warhead at the tip of it, which it could deliver against the United States. I understand the concern about South Koreans being put in jeopardy if there's a military option that we take. I tell you what concerns me, it's millions of dead Americans. This regime is not rational in our terms. It may be rational in its own terms, but it's a different universe that they're living in. And the circumstances that we face there with Iran, potentially with other rogue states or terrorist groups getting nuclear weapons, this is an inflection point. If we can't stop North Korea and Iran from getting nuclear weapons, I think there's no limit to it worldwide.
And Kim Jong-un has promised and threatened just what you said.
Sun Tower, good afternoon. Running 27 right, one estimated 080 at 3, clear for takeoff. Change your departure. Have a safe flight.
At Osan Air Base, a U.S. air base in South Korea, they are watching.
We're up there. We are keeping eyes and ears on North Korea.
And they are waiting.
So I can start to cue missiles, I can cue radars, I can cue targeting pod.
Traps on 1, traffic is now off your right wing, 3 miles.
The control tower coordinates a few dozen military flights a day, sending these spy planes dubbed Dragon Lady up over the Korean peninsula.
We're busier here than we've been probably in the last 10 years. We're very busy. But we are tasked every day to fly our mission, so we do that.
Pressurized suits allow pilots to soar at altitudes of 70,000 feet. That's twice as high as a commercial jet. The one-seater spy planes are flown by 8 specially trained officers. The job to provide intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. A window for Washington into North Korea needed now as much as ever.
Everything that this aircraft is collecting is almost instantaneously sent down to people who can process, exploit, and disseminate that information in minutes to our leadership.
We would be ready to launch operations out of both airspaces or both air bases at a moment's notice and be ready to fight tonight.
Major Danny Trueblood is on a 2-year tour to South Korea, taking up a job that U.S. troops have done for decades, since the end of the Korean War.
The F-16s are pivotal to basically the defense and any potential actions. So with GPS or laser-guided weapons, we can strike a variety of different targets.
This U.S. airbase is fewer than 40 miles from the North Korean border. These supersonic jets can fly about 16 miles a minute. So in the case of a conflict with North Korea, they could reach the DMZ in just 2 to 3 minutes.
They practice daily, sometimes with mock battles. On this day, 12 of the Air Force's F-16 fighter jets take off.
Because we don't know. With the unpredictability of things, tonight may be, in fact, the night. So we train every night.
Still the same work they've done every day for decades. Now with the world watching what happens next.
It's a vital element for them to achieve their long-term goal of getting U.S. forces off the Korean Peninsula and their really long-term goal of taking control of the entire peninsula. You know, people ask, why does North Korea want nuclear weapons? And one frequent answer is to defend themselves against the threat of the United States. The real reason is this would give them an enormous tool for leverage and pressure against South Korea. And so this exercise, it is defensive, as Secretary Mattis was quoted as saying a few minutes ago. But from the North's perspective, it demonstrates U.S. forces are still very much committed to the defense of South Korea, and that's what they object to.
And in a way, as you just point out, does that in a sense bolster Kim Jong-un's regime? Because now, he's got the boogeyman to point to us, as a rationale to continue his nuclear program.
Right. Well, that's propaganda that many people in the United States believe, that he wouldn't have developed the nuclear weapon or ballistic missile capability he has, but for the fact he feels that we have a hostile intent toward him. Instead, causality flows the other way. Who would care about North Korea if they didn't threaten South Korea and ultimately the United States and others around the world?
So when you talk about the freeze for freeze, and Steve Bannon talked about that, I'll ask you in a second. I mean, any possibility of this? This is exactly what Russia and China want, for us to freeze these military exercises and not conduct them while they allegedly would freeze their nuclear program. You know how good their promises have been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie Clay, the great scholar and arms control negotiator, once described North Korea as being possessed of boundless mendacity, and he was being kind. The fact is that now we have the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense both saying our aim is to negotiate with North Korea, as if we haven't been doing that for the past 25 years. I think the end result will be the same. North Korea has repeatedly promised to give up its nuclear weapons program. They just never seem to get around to doing it. And this, I think, is what President Trump needs to focus on. Let's be clear, his 3 predecessors made a lot of mistakes, but it's very likely if we continue these policies that North Korea and Iran, I might add, will become full-fledged nuclear weapon states on his administration.